what we're doing tonight is having a solidarity call across the United States because we kind of came up with the idea that it would be a good idea to connect with everyone as much as possible and to get everyone connected, because we think that by having solidarity that we can share experience and ideas and energy and creativity and actions across the United States to further the work that we're doing in our local organizing. So that's what this is all about. And so now Susie is on the phone tonight, and Susie Beiersdorfer is the president of the National Community Rights Network. And Susie, could you give us a little bit of a quick update on what's going on with NCRN, where we are right now in our evolution? We're a very new organization.
Yes. Thank you, Tom. And it's really exciting how many people kept coming on the call. So this is really a great event. So
there's 28 people.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah. So the National Community Rights Network, NCRN, is made up of representatives from Colorado, New Hampshire, Oregon, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Washington. So our board consists of representatives from each of those states. Now, our mission, which is on our website, is to assist our state community rights networks to educate people across the country on local community self-governance and community rights, secure the inalienable rights of people, communities, and nature through local self-governance, assert community rights to empower and liberate communities from state preemption and corporate harm, and advance those efforts towards state and federal constitutional change. So the NCRN emerged from local and state community rights groups as a vehicle to support, network, and promote local, county, and statewide community rights actions, such as ordinances, initiatives, charter amendments, and state constitutional amendments. The NCRN has also drafted a federal amendment, Amendment 28, protecting the right of local communities and states to adopt rights-based laws without being overturned by federal preemptive laws. So the NCRN began conversations among state representatives in May 2014, became a 501c3 organization in October 2014 at the first retreat in Seven Springs, Pennsylvania. In 2015, we created an endorsement policy to recognize communities and states' rights-based initiatives and help promote community bills of rights in Youngstown, Ohio, and Barrington, New Hampshire for the November 2015 general elections, as well as a proposed New Hampshire state amendment. We continue our board work through conference calls and emails, and gathered in Colorado in October 2015 for our second retreat. Now, in 2016, we have concentrated on expanding and refining our communications, including interviewing activists for YouTube videos that Tom has done, updating and streamlining our endorsement application process, and working on our website with Zach as website master to better share and promote the work of the state CRNs and local groups working on rights-based initiatives, as well as we want to be a resource for the general public. So that's an overview of what we have been working on and we continue to work on.
Thank you, Susie. The first state that we want to hear from is my state, which is Colorado, and I'm an NCRN representative there. We also have Cliff Wilming on the call tonight, and Cliff is a founder and board member of East Boulder County United, which is the organization which fielded and got elected and has been defending and enforcing the Lafayette Community Bill of Rights for banning fracking. He's also a member of the Colorado Community Rights Network Board of Directors, which is the organization that's really been working to help local communities initiate community bills of rights and to push forward with a state amendment campaign. Cliff, are you there?
I'm here, Tom. We'll start in Windsor. This is Joan Stevenson. She is on the board of the Windsor Community Rights Network. Maybe, Joan, you can talk a little bit about Windsor and what's taking place up there.
Sure. We've in 2010, a man that was running for mayor said to the people, there's something really you're not going to like that's coming along. And within a month, the first well pad was put in Windsor. Now there's over 200 well pads there. And it's in Will County where there's 36,000 fracking well pads. So Carol Hankel and J.D. Rubal got together and started talking with Cliff, and Cliff came in 2014 to introduce the Colorado Community Rights Initiative, and that's when I joined the group. And we formed Windsor Community Rights in May of 2014. When the Colorado Community Rights Initiative was pulled from the ballot because, it was pulled so we didn't get on the ballot, we decided to do our own local ballot. And with the help of CELDEP, we had a Bill of Rights that we presented to the town clerk of Windsor. And we were told it wasn't single issue, even though it was almost exactly like the Lafayette Bill of Rights, which was approved by the Colorado State Supreme Court. That didn't stop us. CELDEP helped us come up with a different initiative to present to the town, and that was rejected too. Finally, on our third attempt in October of 2015, the town would accept our initiative if we changed some wording. But by then, the state community rights was gearing up for another attempt for the initiative, and we thought it would be best to put all our efforts toward that initiative. And where are we now? Well, we have $50 in our bank account, and we're down to 6 people. But we've decided it might be better to rename our group to the Northern Colorado Community Rights Network so we can include Larimer and Will counties. We have met and trained many people for signature gathering, and we're hoping they're willing to continue our work with us. Grassroots takes time. We will keep educating people by offering more speakers and important movies. It's not all or nothing, and I hope we're not running out of time to get things done. As I once heard, despair is not an option, and that's where we are.
Never give up. Keep fighting.
Never give up.
It's still in there.
Yeah.
So, Cliff, can you talk about East Boulder County United?
Sure. So I live in a town called Lafayette, Colorado, which is on the same shale. We are on the southwestern portion of the same shale that Windsor is. And, we lived here for about 7 years. In 2013, Lafayette, Colorado, with the help of CELDEP, became, through a charter amendment that was passed by over 60% of the vote, we became the most comprehensive ban on fossil fuels in Colorado history. We banned not just fracking, but all oil and gas development, all extraction of all fossil fuels, as well as the disposal of associated industrial waste, and the construction of new infrastructure for the extraction industries. We were promptly sued by the Colorado Oil and Gas Association in 2013, and that case went through the local or the district court, and of course we were found to have violated the Colorado state law that says you have no right to ban fracking at all. I can go on chronologically from there. At that point, there were several other Colorado communities that were dealing with oil and gas development, either locally, and they took a variety of approaches. I know that Longmont, which is about 8 miles north of us, banned the technology of hydraulic fracturing altogether. There were a few other communities that created lengthy 5-year moratoriums, and all of us ended up getting taken to court, which really compelled the creation of the Colorado Community Rights Network, which advanced and submitted the first state ballot initiative of the community rights movement nationally. We call it the Colorado Community Rights Amendment, and it is a very comprehensive, broad measure that essentially places people and communities and nature as the primary and authoritative decision makers statewide over the interests of corporations when those things come in conflict. Of course, there's always legal challenges to this kind of stuff. They try to keep us off the ballot. We've been challenged all the way through the Colorado Supreme Court in 2 rounds of fielding this amendment by everything from the Colorado Chamber of Commerce to the Colorado Mining Association to various forces from the Colorado Petroleum Association. We've defeated all those challenges and have been found to make ballot initiative requirements. Unfortunately, this year we have just wrapped up that effort. We gained about 20,000 signatures towards making the state ballot, which is about 5 times as much as we were able to put together in 2014, but we still fell significantly short. And so it was just in the last couple of weeks we wrapped up our second effort. So it's really a matter of continuing to put together the organizational structure and capacity to really pushing that all the way up onto the state ballot.
Yeah, Marilee, are you still there? Can you add anything more to the conversation here?
Yes, I can add to it. In Colorado, we tried the state ballot initiative twice, once in 2014 and again this year. And when Cliff refers to communities being sued or we were sued, what he means is the cities who passed these ordinances were sued. I just wanted to clarify that. It wasn't us as a community rights network or a local organizing group. It was the city. So now stepping on to the state ballot initiative, Colorado allows for an amendment by popular vote of the Colorado Constitution. There's a lot of hurdles that you have to go through to do that, and we made it through those hurdles, including a challenge to the Supreme Court. The issue in Colorado is that it requires, at least this year, there's a formula that tells you how many signatures are required based on voters for a particular office in the prior election. That would have required 98,000 valid signatures to get on the ballot. What most groups do that are trying to get on the ballot, and some of them are funded by the oil and gas industry, some of them are funded by corporate interests, is they pay signature gatherers, and there are signature gathering firms that come into the state. If they do that, they are very likely to make ballot because they have now paid a whole army of people to come in. We got an estimate for that. It was $250,000. We don't have $250,000, so our efforts had to rely on volunteer signature gatherers completely. And in Colorado, that system is set up to make sure somebody's making money off of this. It's not set up to allow local communities to actually go out and do that. It's a hell of a hassle. We had about 230 signature gatherers, and as you know, when you have a group that large, that 20% of the people do the bulk of the heavy lifting and do the bulk of the signature gathering. They did. We got about 20,000 signatures. We realized we would not have enough by the time we had to turn them in on August 8th, and we didn't feel it was fair to let the signature gatherers continue working knowing that we wouldn't be able to make the quota. So that's where we are now with the state initiative. We plan to do it again in Colorado. You can do it every 2 years. There's a legal rationale for that. And we plan to propose it again in 2018 and, see if we can either get a lot of funding to pay petitioners, that seems unlikely, or gather enough volunteers to actually get this on the ballot.
Thank you, Marilee. And Marilee is the president of the Colorado Community Rights Network and also board member of East Boulder County United. And Cliff has been real passionate about direct action for years. Ever since I met him, he's been talking about it. And so what we're doing is we're including direct action into our community rights work. Can you talk about that, Cliff?
Yeah, I'll be very quick. Essentially what we have found, which to a large extent the community rights strategy is based in, is exposing the situation as being undemocratic by construction. And, it's very traditional that most movements throughout history have arrived at the conclusion that the system that we all live and operate under is not actually broken, it's actually fixed. And it's our job to break those laws that are keeping us constrained or repressed. The community rights effort here in Colorado has, due to the widespread litigation and the extreme profile where the narrative is very clear, you do not have any rights. Those are all appropriated by the state. It's our position, at least in the exploratory phase right now, where we will begin to start enforcing our rights where we live, not just in a legal sense, but in a physical one. And so the Colorado Community Rights Network started a direct action committee. We're having our first generalized training on the basic history and use of civil disobedience and direct action in movements historically. Of course, there's a variety of risks that are employed or alongside of any of these kind of these tactics, but it's essentially our position that we've been pushed so far into a corner that now it's time to essentially increase or expose the level of conflict that is already inherent in this whole problem. So you should stay tuned for that. It'll be on August 13th. It'll be our first civil disobedience training of the Colorado Community Rights Network. It's going to be about a 6-hour training.
Yeah, and I'm sticking my neck out a little bit saying this on behalf of anyone but myself. But here in Colorado, the training August 13th, anyone in the nation, particularly in our community rights movement, is welcome to come and join us. And if you express interest in doing that, we'll certainly talk to you about staying at one of our homes or something so that you can make it easier on you to come out here.
Who's putting on the training?
The Colorado Community Rights Network.
Pardon?
The Colorado Community Rights Network.
No, but who is actually doing the training? Is it somebody that's got experience with direct action, or are you guys doing it in-house?
Kind of yes to both. I was originally the training will be predominantly done by a man named Robert Chenant, who is a Native American who used to work with the Ruckus Society. I myself am one of the founders of the Chicago Direct Action Network, and so I've been doing, once upon a time I used to do direct action trainings all the time. But it's our intent to build that wing of the community rights movement so that we can begin to train our own trainers. And so communities threatened by oil and gas activity or whatever it may be can, of course, go through the process of creating local community bills of rights, but alongside of that, actually beginning to prepare their community for physical defense of those measures.
We need to move on to the next state.
Okay, New Hampshire. Douglas Darrell is our National Community Rights Network representative from New Hampshire. And Douglas, could you introduce yourself briefly and introduce Celia, who I heard sign on to the call?
Yes, my name's Doug Darrell. I live in Barnstead, New Hampshire. My wife was Gail, and that's how I'm kind of been involved in the work. She was the real the activist. I was just running the farm here and doing stuff, and after whatever happened, I just continuing on. So, anyway, Celia, she's Celia Brandenburgs from Barrington, New Hampshire, and they passed a ordinance last town meeting. So I guess I'll just leave it at that and hear from Celia.
Hi, yes, this is Celia, and I'm in Barrington, New Hampshire, and we are a very small town of about 7,000 plus inhabitants. And we passed the rights-based ordinance this March, and it took us, we are named the Barrington Waterways Protection Committee. It took us about 4 years of petition warrant articles and a lot of education to pass the rights-based ordinance. So it lays out a Bill of Rights, similar to a lot of other ones, which includes the right to sustainable land and water use and the right to clean air and water and the right to preserve the aesthetic values of the towns, and prohibiting resource extraction, and that's in the form of, in our town, of gravel pits. That's how it all started. We have about 18 gravel pits already in our town, and there was one proposed right next to the Isinglass River and in a very residential area, which would really be bad for all the residents and the children on this road with a one-lane bridge. And that's what started all this. And the other problem we have in town was about water withdrawal. We had 15 years ago a company that got permit, even the town didn't want it. But luckily by mismanagement from that company, they went bankrupt, but the land came out of bankruptcy and is momentarily being marketed as a water withdrawal plant, good for a water withdrawal plant. And that would devastate the surrounding people's wells and wetlands and aquifers. So that land actually is in 2 towns, Nottingham and Barrington. And now both towns have passed a water ordinance, and also we call it resource extraction because we also have the gravel. And so we're very happy. We're really a small group of about 5 people, and it was very hard. We got a lot of opposition by the town officials who really weren't interested in finding out anything what we were doing and just said plainly no. But we got it. We're very proud of it, and that's the long and short of it.
Thank you. We have with us Michelle Sanborn, who's the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund organizer for New Hampshire. Michelle, could you talk a little bit about your role there in the New Hampshire community rights movement?
Absolutely. Thank you. So here in New Hampshire, there's a number of different issues that communities find themselves confronted with. It seems that many of the other states, fracking is a big issue, wastewater injection wells, very much centered around oil and gas industry. Here, we find ourselves still being very threatened by energy issues, but it varies from a project called Northern Pass, which is hydropower, and we also have industrial wind projects. And, corporate water withdrawals. There's also been concerns regarding the Northeast Energy Direct Pipeline project by Kinder Morgan, along with the corporate water withdrawal threats that have affected a number of communities here as well. So very diverse issues. Every now and then we hear concerns regarding GMOs, sludge spreading. We've actually had a couple of concerns about potential nuclear waste storage. So it's an interesting, diversified field, I guess, of organizing here. And then Barnstead actually passed the first in the nation ordinance regarding freedom from religious identification requirement. So it's exciting to see that beginning to branch out beyond the kind of traditional or conventional environmental concerns and see that expanding into social justice issues. In New Hampshire, we are not an initiative state. We are a legislative state when it comes to working things at the state level. We have town meetings, so very, very involved at the local level. And at that level, we do have more of an initiative process. And Celia mentioned when she referenced the petitioned warrant article. And that's the opportunity that residents have here to be able to place an ordinance on the warrant of their town meeting. And really what that means is it gets placed on the agenda. And that gets voted upon. So beyond the local organizing part or structure, there is no initiative process beyond that. So when we start talking about state-level work, or we don't have county-level organizing here because we really don't have any county-level authority from a government structure perspective. We do have counties. They just don't have any real governing authority. So that leaves us with the local level and the state level. And at the state level, not being an initiative stage requires us to then move forward with the endorsement of legislators. And as we all have experienced, you're essentially convincing legislators to jump on board with something that is looking to put all that power and authority that they have enjoyed for far too long into the hands of local residents. And as everyone I'm sure has run into, it's often not received very well. However, that brings me to some of the efforts that have been made by the NHCRN this past legislative session, which was to propose the Community Rights Amendment for New Hampshire, which did receive bipartisan support. But it didn't go much further in the sense that in New Hampshire it is required by law that there is a public hearing for every piece of legislation that is put forward. And just because we have that does not mean that they actually listen or care. It just means that they have to sit through about a 45-minute time slot. And then they just go about their day and do what they're going to do anyway. So the decision had been made before we ever entered into that public hearing. But the benefit was that it did increase awareness for community rights in New Hampshire. It increased our outreach and education, and not just to the local communities and individuals, but also what we call the general court, so the Senate and the House. I guess at this point, before I keep rambling on, stuff that maybe people have questions on, are there questions thus far?
I have a question.
Yeah.
This is Marilee in Colorado. Do you find it more or less difficult to organize when you have multiple issues like that?
Interesting question, because there have been times where it has been more difficult. One of the biggest struggles that we've had is communicating and helping people to understand the common denominator of community rights. So the southern part of the state is more populated than the northern part of the state. It is the northern part of the state that is primarily being threatened by Northern Pass, which is a 192-mile extension cord from Canada down to the southern New England states that will run right through the middle of New Hampshire. So it's primarily negatively affecting the northern part of the state. Industrial wind affects more of the central to northern part of the state. The pipeline was affecting the southern part of the state. So what that did was it actually created, on one hand, interesting discussion and conversation, which I think is important and necessary for people to consider, what energy sources and resources do we have available? What do we consider sustainable? How do we balance this whole act? On the other hand, it created division, where we had southern communities saying, well, what's the matter with Northern Pass? It's so much better than being in the incineration zone. And then you had, maybe industrial wind communities that were saying, well, it's better to have these, 100-plus foot towers for Northern Pass than it is to have a 500-foot spinning noisy turbine near your home. So there was a lot of kind of throwing each other under the bus when it came to legislative efforts, and which one people felt was better than the other as far as an energy quote solution, and communicating to people that at the end of the day, it's not about an energy solution. This is about corporate rights. This is about the infringement upon your right to decide what happens where you live. That's the common denominator. So that's been our focus of education, and it has made some differences, which has been really good to see.
This is Booker from Corvallis, Oregon. Being that you, New Hampshire, it looks like you guys are very active, I am curious, have you guys tapped into the people that are the, and I don't want to sound partisan here, but the Bernie Sanders group, the ones, especially the ones that have been disenfranchised by the system? I'm just curious, have you been able to tap into those people at all?
No. No.
You know, I'll answer for Colorado, or give my answer. This is Marilyn, Colorado. We found that was a lot of activists were diverted into the Bernie Sanders campaign. He was very well thought of in Colorado. So we had people who said, I'd love to do petitioning, but I'm working on the Bernie campaign. And if you said to them or predicted what the final outcome was going to be, which we did very clearly, and that's exactly what happened, they were horrified to hear that. And some of them still have hope. So by the time this all came to pass, which was just this week, it was too late for us. But we lost a lot of people to that feeling of somebody's going to help us, Bernie's going to do it, and ignoring the whole structure of the Democratic Party that wouldn't allow that to happen. So, yeah, it affected us a great deal. Will they jump on board? They may now, but for our petitioning, it's too late.
Okay, well, let's go on to Oregon now. Michelle, we'd love to have you talk again in a future call. That was very great. Thank you. Oregon, Zach, can you talk about what's going on in Lincoln County, because they couldn't attend tonight, and you said you had a summary of what they're doing there with their Community Bill of Rights?
Yeah. First, just to introduce myself. My name is Zach Stark-McMillan. I live in Eugene, Oregon. I'm the Oregon National NCRN representative and the secretary, and I'm the president of the Oregon Community Rights Network. We'll hear more about the specific issues. I'll introduce a couple different people to talk about some of the issues that we're dealing with in Oregon. The main things are pesticides, fossil fuels, like many other people, and then we've also encountered a lot of difficulty just accessing the ballot, and a lot of roadblocks, as I think other people have as well. In Lincoln County, Oregon, which is along the coast, they are gathering signatures for a ban on pesticides. I'm going to read just a quick paragraph from them. So, we are well past the halfway point gathering signatures. We've been concentrating on Walmart for the past 3 days, counting today, the last day. It's quite an experience. There's a constant crowd entering and exiting the store. The majority consists of vacationers from out of town and out of state people. Among them are Lincoln County voter jewels, and we have to address the whole crowd to find those. Because of the sheer numbers of people passing through, we still get a lot of signatures that way. They're only authorized to be there 3 days a month, though. They're having events in Lincoln City, watching films about pesticides, like Behind the Emerald Curtain, and speeches and stump speeches there to gather support with good discussions. And they've trained 25 people to petition for signatures, and have had well-attended house parties in Newport. They're also, more just about specific events and speakers that are happening there. So they're well on their way to make it to the ballot pretty soon. hopefully.
Zach, the other thing too about Lincoln is that they're banning the aerial spraying of pesticides. Is that correct? On forestry and ag land?
I thought that was Lane County.
Well, I think it's Lincoln too.
In Lane County, in Lane County, the Freedom from Aerial Herbicides Alliance is working to pass a ban on aerial spraying of herbicides on forestry land. They're also in the petition gathering process. I'm not exactly sure how far they're in, but I think they're at least a good way in to that process. Lane County also has had extraordinary problems with ballot access. We had to split up they wouldn't allow us past the single subject, so we had to split the ordinance into multiple pieces. So there's one piece that's the ban, and then another piece that is the local community self-government as its own standalone initiative. And so that piece has been stuck in court. I'm actually not completely sure on the current status of that because I wasn't supposed to give this update. Sorry about that. That is on the way as well. And the Oregon Community Rights Amendment, we have a campaign to amend the Oregon Constitution to include the right of local community self-government. The way it works in Oregon, you file it, and the Secretary of State allows you to gather 1,000 signatures, and then they review it. So we've filed, gathered the 1,000 sponsorship signatures. They reviewed it, and of course, as expected, they determined that they did not approve it. We are challenging that decision, and we're in the middle of those court proceedings now, awaiting a hearing probably in November. So that is where we're at with that, a little stalled, but always pushing onward.
Jack, I wanted to add to your thing there just because I'm a chief petitioner on that. Part of that is challenging the mootness of the point. That's part of the hearing in Marion County Court that we are in October and November dealing with, is whether or not it's a moot point. One of the challenges is a 2-year period that we're dealing with in gathering signatures and having to start all over again in the process because the fact that you've got a certain amount of time to do it in, and there's a 2-year limitation in Oregon. So it's a challenge for us. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, we filed for 2016, but because of the slow process of the Secretary of State and the courts now, the deadline for gathering those signatures has passed, so they're saying it's a moot point to begin with. So first we have to challenge that or overcome that, as that those are kind of arbitrary, the time limits and the dates are a little arbitrary distinctions that prohibit.
They're trying to put us back on the hamster wheel.
Yeah.
Good point, Tina.
So next up, I'm going to introduce Kai Hushka. He's the CELDEF organizer for Oregon and Washington.
Hello, everybody. I think my piece was just to maybe give a sense of what's been going on overall in the state of Oregon. As Zach mentioned, there are communities working on issues around the spraying of pesticides, most specifically the aerial spraying, so using helicopters and planes, primarily for timber, industrial timber. So after they clear-cut areas, they come over eventually after replanting and spray that area so that competing vegetation doesn't infringe upon the growth of those trees for their next cutting. As one can imagine, stuff's very toxic and has been accumulating over very many decades now, and so communities have, of course, exhausted their efforts of getting state legislatures to do anything about it. So like on other issues that we've heard tonight, people are acting out locally to adopt law on the basis of rights protection. In addition, there's a community, Coos County, Oregon, who's dealing with proposed LNG terminal and LNG pipeline. Surprise, surprise, that frack gas, if that project's approved, would be coming from Colorado. So thank you very much, Colorado. And in addition, Columbia, yep, Columbia County, which is all the places where the work is happening currently, just to give you a geographic sense, is really happening all on the western side of the state of Oregon, and primarily up and down what's called the I-5 corridor, so Interstate 5, connecting basically Portland to the north and Medford, Oregon, Klamath Falls area to the south. So where the activity has been community rights-wise, it's all happened in communities along that stretch. And just to kind of, I guess, paint a different environment compared maybe to some other places, most of the work, in fact, all the work so far has all been on the county level, not on a township level or a city level. It's all been happening at a county level, primarily because the issues are all mostly happening in the unincorporated parts of counties, not within a municipality. So the organizing has had to happen on the county level to deal with things like aerial spraying and LNG pipelines, as well as coal and oil trains, and GMOs have also been another issue that the community rights framework has organized around. So things have been in motion now in Oregon for, I think, pretty close to 4 years now as far as focused activity. And so there has not been really any new communities coming on board besides the ones that are active now. At the same time, we do have Lincoln County, Coos County, Columbia County, and 2 initiatives in Lane County, all potentially heading to the same ballot, which would be the May of 2017. So the good thing is we may have a lot of community rights visibility in Oregon along with the state level work. Probably similarly to if the Ohio folks can get on the ballot, the same sort of effect where you've got a number of communities in unison looking to obviously challenge the structure. I think that's it. Anything else, Zach or Dana, on anybody else that want to add about Oregon?
I think one of the big issues here in Oregon is going to be state preemption, just like when we brought out, several communities brought out bans on GMOs. They preempted us back in 2013, and so that's there. Our legislature, in all their wisdom, in the last legislative system, decided that the people didn't have the right to vote on annexations in our municipalities, which is in the charters of multiple communities that we have here in Oregon. And so there's going to be a major uprising at the municipal level at this point, and we're hoping that that will be an opening for community rights education around our right not only to vote, but to govern what goes on in our communities.
Thank you, Dana, for the annexation issue.
Thank you.
I'll just add, because I have to leave the call pretty soon, I just wanted to say that one of the places will be the city of Corvallis, where I live. I know that the mayor is very, I know they're going to fight this thing with the annexation, and because they are very concerned about the issues revolving around sustainability in our town.
It's kind of interesting, actually. Corvallis, the city council rose up and actually did file a thing against the state around this preemption. So everything's in motion.
We need to move on to Ohio.
Ohio, Susie Barsdorfer.
Okay.
Frack-Free Mahoning Valley, Ohio Community Rights Network, and the National Community Rights Network, Ohio representative and president.
Yes. Yes. Well, this is a wonderful call, and a lot of great conversation. I'm going to try to summarize what I had written out just in the interest of time, and look forward to other calls. So I'll start with the Youngstown Bill of Rights, and then we'll hear, I think Greg Pace from Columbus is on the call. Are you there, Greg? Okay. Gwen Fisher from Portage County. Are you there, Gwen?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. And then Tish as the CELDEF Ohio organizer, the CELDEF Ohio organizer. So I'll start with Youngstown. And our Community Bill of Rights Committee was formed in 2012 after, as we all know, trying to convince local officials that there's harm going on and let's try to prevent it, through meetings and speakings and rallies and protests. And most of these tactics were ineffective and really not appreciated. They just really wanted us to go away. We also had the earthquakes caused by an injection well, but hoping that would raise more alarm. But again, they just looked at us, willful ignorance is what we came up with. They don't want to know about it because they don't want to have to deal with it. They use the line, that all the power is at the state level because local control was taken away. Well, we know it's not, but it was in law taken away in 2004. So we began to talk with CELDEF and Ben and first created an ordinance that the council would pass, but that just kind of died. So then we began a circulating petition for signatures in late 2012, early 2013. So we were on the May 2013 primary ballot in May. It was the proposal was voted down, and now our group has collected enough signatures over the years to be on the ballot for the 6th time this November. We made a few tweaks to the document, and what we have found most effective, this is a great piece of information, is to gather signatures at the primary election because that the majority are going to be registered voters, and it's a lot better than canvassing door to door in the winter. So as everyone else has experienced, we have faced opposition from officials, Chamber of Commerce unions, Democratic Party, local newspaper leaders. Were always outspent. Last August, our Mahoning Board of Elections threw our petition off the ballot because they said that the voters shouldn't have to keep voting on this. But the Ohio Supreme Court ruled 7-0 that the citizen initiative must be placed on the ballot. So we lost with only a 299 vote difference. So our motto is we don't lose until we quit. The evolution in our group continues, but we certainly know the true meaning of Ben Price's words, which we first heard in a meeting in June 2012, and that is that we don't just have a fracking problem, we have a democracy problem. So besides Gwen and Tish, my husband Ray, are you on the phone? Oh, he was going to be on and just
yes, I have to unmute it.
Oh, okay.
I'm here. Hi.
Okay, so you were just going to talk about what's happening this fall.
Okay, yeah, I've been very supportive of CELDEF locally in that Thomas Lindsay has spoken each of the past 2 academic years at a lecture series I run on every Wednesday on energy and the environment. The first was via Skype, and then the second, last year, we were able to bring him on his Ohio tour. And then this upcoming fall, we're going to be having the local Youngstown premiere of We the People 2.0. And Tish O'Dell and Doug Shields, who are both in the movie, will then be on a panel afterwards to answer questions and to talk about the film.
Great. Okay, so then as far as, we're doing things at the local level where we can do citizens initiatives when you have a municipality with a charter type of government. At the county level, that is used when in townships that don't have the same structure of law, so not able to protect themselves. And that's where we've had counties, Athens and Medina and Meigs and Portage, propose county charters to try to protect the counties from harms of, dealing with the shale gas development. So in 2015, all of the county charters were challenged and were kept off the ballot. But again, Ohio, we don't lose until we quit. The counties have come back, collected more signatures. Once again, they're being challenged by, this time, local boards of elections, as well as our Secretary of State. So we're just, finding out more and more people are realizing that, as somebody said, this system isn't broken, it's fixed, and it's fixed against us. So we continue, and we are also have recently launched petitions for a state constitutional amendment. So Tish, if you could talk about your role as CELDEF organizer. We love Tish.
Thanks, Susie. We love you too. We love Youngstown. Youngstown shows everyone else in the state when they start whining. I always say, well, look at Youngstown. They're doing it for the 6th time, so stop whining.
Actually, I just realized that I didn't introduce Gwen and with Portage County.
Gwen, do you want to pop Susie mentioned county charters and get them
Sure. I'm happy to do that. In Portage County is half very rural and half a little more urban, and we started educating ourselves in late 2010 and 2011. By 2012, we had gathered some group in Kent. We were calling ourselves Concerned Citizens Ohio. A few of us were familiar with CELDEF, but the rest hadn't quite bought that. They were still learning about the harms of fracking. And we tried initially to get the city of Kent, which has Kent State University in it, to pass a CELDEF type ordinance, and didn't manage that. And then we've now moved to the citizen initiative state, but it was very frustrating for those of us in the rural areas, townships smaller than 3,000 and villages with no charter. And so we were delighted when CELDEF came up with a county charter option. And last year, our group started rather late to collect signatures, and we just didn't make enough signatures. So we started over again this year with a charter that spelled out all the details, the government that we wanted. And on June 30th, our group had 3,300 signatures, a core of about 5 or 6 people, and we needed 4,079. And by July 19th, we turned in over 5,000. So the group did an enormous effort in that period. We're now waiting for the Board of Elections to have its meeting, which has been scheduled for Monday, which makes it very tight if we want to protest their vote. We don't know how they're going to vote, but if we want to protest it, that gives us only 2 days to make the protest. And I just found out that even the director of the Board of Elections says that she is not the one who can tell me whether or not they have finished validating the signatures. There's one person who can tell us, the deputy director, and she went home sick this morning before they had finished all the petitions. And the director did not know whether she was coming back tomorrow or not, and she guessed that somehow this report would get written over the weekend and we would get it Monday, but we probably can't get it tomorrow. Isn't that weird?
I'll just do really quickly. Basically, in Ohio, you've heard most of our issues are all around fracking. It's either the injection of waste, that we're getting high volumes of that. It's pipelines is a big issue, and obviously the fracking itself. There is currently, we're working with a community in Toledo, a community group, and we're hoping that they are going to be proposing our first rights of nature ordinance to protect Lake Erie. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Lake Erie and the problems it's been having, but it's the source of drinking water for many, many, many communities and a lot of Ohioans. And 2 years ago, we had an issue where the water was undrinkable for over 300,000 residents of the Toledo area. So that's why they're proposing that. We have a showing of the movie up in Toledo on Monday, and we're hoping to launch that campaign. So that'll be something different, and much of that is due to factory farming and a lot of the fertilizers being dumped into the river, which flows into the lake. So we currently have in Ohio 4 communities that have already passed Bills of Rights. That was Yellow Springs, Oberlin, Athens City, and the city of Broadview Heights. The only challenge that we've had to date is the Broadview Heights Bill of Rights. That story, you'll see some of it in We the People, the movie. We went to court, the Supreme Court, or not the Supreme Court, we went to an appeals court at the local level. It was actually a strategic decision not to go to the Supreme Court with that case. And even though a lot of people will cite Broadview Heights and say, well, you lost in court, they like to use that, the reality of it is obviously we led the way for a lot of other communities in Ohio, showed them there's a different way and they have to challenge. Also, there have not been any new wells drilled in Broadview Heights since we've had our Bill of Rights in 2012. And we've had the drillers come out publicly state that Broadview Heights is just too litigious because not only did we have a lawsuit with the city, the citizens, like in Colorado, filed a class action lawsuit against the state and the Oil and Gas Association. We lost that, and then we appealed that, and the appellate court ruled against us this past January. But it's interesting that the drillers said it's too litigious, they don't want to come here. So, and then as Susie
got
said,
off the hamster wheel, Tish, and you said, no, we're going to keep fighting.
Yeah, they don't like that too much. So there is a reason to keep doing this. Just because I'm telling you it, because you'll hear all this stuff, in the fights you guys are going to have in battles too. And one little story about a little community called Waterville, Ohio, just to fill you in on a little strategy that was interesting. That formed very quickly. It's in the route of a Nexus pipeline, and they were supposed to have a compressor station go in the community. What we did, the Ohio Community Rights Network actually did, is very strategically they went to the Ohio EPA public hearing for the air permit for that compressor station. We performed our street theater, The People versus the Corporate State, outside many times to get attention, even though we were told we weren't allowed to, but it was at a public school, so we did it anyway. What we're learning here in Ohio is to not be so obedient and, not be so nice. And it's hard for Ohioans. So what we did is we had a table set up inside the Ohio Community Rights Network, and there was at least 8 from the network who stood up and gave testimony, blasting, the regulatory system, how it wouldn't help these residents protect themselves, and told them to come to our table if they were interested to hear more. Well, we had over 100 people sign up that night, and they formed a group immediately. I went up and talked to the group. They got their charter amendment written, and they went out, collected signatures, and it's on the ballot so far. There hasn't been any challenges, although now we're waiting for the Board of Elections to give the okay. So it's just an interesting story how they used one of the regulatory hearings to actually form a group intentionally, the network, and it worked. So
good job.
Yes.
Going on in Ohio.
Yay.
We're going to move on to Pennsylvania now. And Kara Scott, are you on the line? And John Trello?
Yeah, John's here. Yep.
John.
We're in Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
I'm here. I couldn't unmute my phone. Sorry.
Oh, good. So we have you
How
too.
come we can hear you now?
How could you ever get muted?
What?
How could you ever be muted?
I know. It's hard to believe, but it happens.
We've tried.
All by one little button.
Can you all introduce some people there and talk about what's going on in Pennsylvania?
Stacy, are you on the line?
I am.
Okay, I want to introduce Stacy Long. And Stacy, you want to share what's been going on in your neck of the woods in Pennsylvania?
Where
do it anyway, even if you don't want to.
Yeah. Wish it's been happening. I don't. It's been going for 3 years, so I don't want to bore everybody. But long story short, there's a proposed injection well coming to my tiny community of about 700 residents. Grant Township is teeny tiny. Everyone here has a private well or spring. There is no public water, no hope for public water. We've been working with Seldef and Chad Nicholson in particular for the last 3 years. We have done so much with them. He's so wonderful to us. Long story short, we had a community bill of rights. We were sued by the gas company who wanted to put in the injection well. They sued us 2 months later. A year later, we became a home rule municipality, the smallest in Pennsylvania, by an overwhelming margin. Our residents voted for it 2-1. Our home rule charter includes things to keep out the injection well. And since then, we've passed a direct action ordinance protecting residents and anyone else who wants to stand and protect Grant Township against trucks laden with frack fluid. And there's so much more I could tell you, but I don't want to go on and on. Chad, do you want to help me a little, if you're still here?
I think that's pretty much the summation. Just a quick update on the legal front, because litigation's been going on for over a couple of years at this point. The judge stripped out parts of the original ordinance last October of 2015. The judge said that, in her opinion, the municipality didn't have the authority to pass a ban on injection wells, that exceeded the authority of the municipality. She did that in October. Just 3 weeks later, in November of 2015, is when the people of Grant Township voted in the home rule charter that Stacy mentioned, and that home rule charter reinstated the ban on the injection well. So they looked at the judge's decision and said, we don't agree with that. We think that's illegitimate. And so they took another popular vote and reinstated the ban. The home rule charter also changes their form of municipality and gives them a much broader and stronger legal platform to fight from. But as you can probably tell with the passage of the direct action ordinance, the folks in Grant aren't necessarily anticipating that their ultimate answer will come from the courts. It's most likely going to come from the people of the community and those who come in to stand with the people of the community. So we're still in litigation. There's a few more decisions and some maneuvering to come with the corporation. But it's been an action-packed few years up there, and huge kudos to the people of Grant. Incredibly brave work.
Thank you, Chad. That was Chad. He's the Seldef organizer for Pennsylvania.
Can we get an update on what's going on the Mahoney watershed and the stuff that's on the agenda?
Sure. So quickly on that, the Little Mahoning watershed is an ecosystem in Grant Township. And so both the ordinance and the charter recognizes rights for nature, rights for the ecosystem. And in Grant Township, that was the first place in the United States where the ecosystem, the watershed, filed for intervention into the case. The judge, the ecosystem, as well as the community group, the Hellbenders, as they're called in the township, filed for intervention. The judge denied intervention for both of them, claiming that they were going to be adequately represented by their government, the Board of Supervisors, which to this point has been standing with the people, but that can change at any time in a future election. So they denied intervention to the ecosystem. The community group appealed that denial of intervention to the Third Circuit in Philadelphia. The Third Circuit upheld the lower court's decision to deny intervention just this last week. However, it looks like there may be an appeal to that as well. So the game is not over. And there's going to be a press release coming out either later this week or early next on a bunch of the recent decisions. But the judge has actually recognized the watershed as a party, even though denying the motion for intervention recognized that the watershed actually did file a motion to intervene and decided that the watershed could not intervene, not because it was a watershed, but for some other arcane legal reasons. But she's been referring regularly to the watershed in the phone calls and in the rulings and decisions. So the watershed is in the case for all intents and purposes.
Back door is as good as the front door.
Okay, should we move on to, is there more in Pennsylvania, or should we move on to Washington?
Is Pennsylvania doing a state amendment?
Yes, yes, we're currently in the process of finalizing, developing it and a constitutional amendment for the Pennsylvania Constitution, and hopefully we'll have that finalized in the next few weeks, and see what we can do to move forward on that.
Cool.
Yeah, this is Chad. Just the initial language is final. We've been working on it for a period of months.
We're working on the strategy right now.
Right. It's different in Pennsylvania from Oregon, Washington, Ohio, Colorado, because we don't have citizens initiative process to put things up for a vote. So one of the first amendments that we're looking at proposing is actually about creating a citizens initiative process to open the Constitution back up to the people. Right now, it's a 2-year process that's held solely within the hands of the legislature, which is obviously bullshit. So that's going to be one of the first things that we do with the amending process is actually open up an initiative process in Pennsylvania.
How is that different from what New Hampshire is doing?
New Hampshire, it's more similar to New Hampshire, in that New Hampshire does not have an initiative process.
But they're doing it through their legislature, is that correct?
Right now, they do need legislators to introduce the amendment in New Hampshire, yes. And I know we're running late, but just a couple of other quick things in Pennsylvania. Highland Township is a small township as well, facing a proposed injection well. They've had an ordinance on the books banning that for 3.5 years at this point. They were sued last year by Seneca Resources, almost an identical complaint that we saw in Grant Township. It's looking like their supervisors may be settling out, but they have also filed for intervention up there on behalf of the watershed, the community group, and the local water authority. It's a small community, only 500 people. As well, Highland Township is pursuing home rule. There's going to be a vote on a home rule charter there, most likely this November. So it's very complex, both in Grant and in Highland Township, these two tiny rural areas, 700 and 500 people, that have some of the most complex litigation that we've ever been a part of. And also to see these efforts go on for 3-4 years at this point, with home rule campaigns and ordinances and lawsuits and direct action and all kinds of stuff, is been keeping us busy and inspired. And there's a number of other local site fights that are in various stages as well, dealing with infrastructure like gas power plants, pipelines, fracking itself. I know Melinda Clatterbuck is on the Community Rights Network. I believe she's listening on the call. They've been fighting pipelines for years. And so stuff is happening. Calls still on factory farms, sewage sludge, you name it. The original Seldup work is still alive and well, unfortunately, at the local level. I wish I could say it was different.
Keep fighting.
Is there anybody on the line from Washington State? Hi, are you still there?
Yes.
Could you give us a little bit of a overview of what's happening up in Washington?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple quick updates. As far as the Washington Community Rights Networks go, it's the least network-like of all the networks, in large part because the organizing has been very difficult, coming from pre-election challenges to once initiatives are qualified, so it's really stunted the organizing. The two things to bring up are Spokane, Washington, and Tacoma. Spokane has been an organized community rights community now since about 2007, and they've actually introduced 5 different community building comprehensive piece of legislation dealing with neighborhoods and environmental rights and social justice issues around health care and housing access, workers' rights. That actually was the first community bill of rights, so that term comes out of Spokane that others may use, that originated from Spokane initially in 2009. Since then, there's also been a voter bill of rights and a worker bill of rights. Nothing has passed. And in the more recent years, starting in 2013, there has been litigation to stop these bills of rights from even getting on the ballot. And in Spokane's case, one of those challenges actually went up to the Supreme Court. A decision came down earlier this year that basically has rendered the local initiative process unusable. They have determined that local initiatives don't deserve the same sort of rights protections as state initiatives, which leaves open anything pretty much that you offer forward in the community that may run afoul of corporate interests is surely going to get challenged by those interests, and that measure will not make it to the voters. So even after you do all your due diligence to get things through the petitioning effort, the courts now basically have said it's okay to sue on anything. So they've opened up the substantive attack to initiatives and community bills of rights before the vote's even taken. With that all said, and Spokane still continues. In fact, there was a rights-based initiative that came forward most recently through the City Council around a right to climate, dealing with fossil fuel trains. And that work has also sparked a new group, not related to CELDF, but there's a direct action group to that topic that was brought up earlier from Colorado. So the need to get more organized and strategic on direct action beyond the community rights stuff is emerging in Spokane. And then the other update from Washington State comes out of Tacoma, Washington, on the opposite side of the state, the west side of the state. That was a community that mobilized very recently and very quickly dealing with a methanol plant proposal. There was a proposal to use natural gas for methanol production in Tacoma, which if the plant or the project would have gone forward, it would have been the world's largest methanol plant, using somewhere upwards of 15 million gallons of water a day. That project pulled itself out, but the people mobilized pretty effectively and pretty quickly, including a group called Save Tacoma Water, who filed their initiative on their own before eventually getting in touch with CELDF to help them with some additional language additions to their law, which basically says that any large water users would have to get the vote of the people before they could move forward. That group, in less than 3 months, through two different petitioning efforts, one for an ordinance, one for a charter amendment, basically saying the same thing. Within 3 months, they gathered 17,000 signatures to get these things on the ballot. They were sued then by their own city government, the Port of Tacoma, the local Chamber of Commerce, and another corporate interest organization, using and citing the Spokane case as the reason why the vote couldn't happen. Their local lower court agreed and struck those ballots from the initiative. They were supposed to be, one of them at least was supposed to be on the ballot this November. That group is going to appeal that decision on the grounds of the violations of local self-government as well as political free speech rights. So that's going to move forward. In addition, that group has actually grown in their ranks since the hearing. They didn't lose people. They've actually added people because of the disgust about how bad the system is. And one of their strategies in Tacoma that might be of interest for folks, I know this has happened most often in singular cases where there's been individuals running for office. In Tacoma, they're looking at running a whole slate of candidates for both city council and the port because there's a number of positions open next year. And the idea is basically to overwhelm both those areas of government with community rights candidates. And so part of the work is building that out and seeing if that can be successful as another means to get these laws adopted is by actually putting their own people in office.
I think Cliff has been trying to do that in Colorado for a while.
With a high degree of loss of success.
My apologies, but I do need to go now. So thanks, everybody.
Great. Thank you, Kai.
Thanks, Kai.
See you later.
Thanks.
Well, we've heard from all of our active states right now. And Susie, are you still on the line? Would you like to give some final impressions and see if anybody has any final comments?
Sure. This has been a really great call. We heard basically from all over the nation, and so many things that we all have in common, and I just think we can all be really grateful for the work that CELDEF, founders and organizers have done and shared, and all the work that we've done at the local level, because we know that all of this begins at the local level. And, we're here to support each other in all the work we do to protect our communities from corporate greed and harm. As we said, we're working on our website, and so we'd appreciate if anyone has any pictures, any photo images and captions. You can send them to Zach, and we'll send out information on that. There's also the movie, the We the People 2.0, that is, I don't know right now what the cost is to be showing it. We'll be showing it in Youngstown, and I know Toledo's showing it on Monday. Some of us from Youngstown are going to drive over to see that. So it was just great hearing everybody's stories, and it just feels really great to be connecting up, because we're here to support each other. Does anyone have any questions or comments before we work toward the next call?
I just want to say that I am just so proud of the tenacity and the longevity and how long it takes, because I know what the work is. I think that across the nation, everybody that's represented on this call, it's just been amazing to me that everybody's been hanging in and keeps on fighting. It's just amazing.
This is Gwen Fisher from Portage, and I just want to point out that Portage County is called Portage County because it's got several watersheds, and one of them feeds right into the Mahoning. So we're all connected, and we all live downstream. Mm-hmm. And by the way, in Portage, we had last year 89 million gallons of fracking waste injected into our 16 active injection wells.
Oh, God.
Oh.
Yeah. That's terrible.
Yeah. There's a Portage County in Michigan right outside of Kalamazoo, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Great. Well, and Tom and Zach, thank you for all the organizing and everything you did to put this call together also.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Excellent call.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good one.
Thanks for attending.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Everybody.
Bye.
Good
All
night.
right.
See you later, neighbors.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Keep up the good work.